With banking around the world becoming more challenging for entrepreneurs and investors who choose to live nomadically or who choose to run their business internationally, today we want to take a closer look at Latin America and the Caribbean because, you know what? It just might be the right place for you. So, Latin America and the Caribbean. If you're doing business around the world, you can find very friendly banks, especially those banks that are willing to deal with non-residents. So Latin America is pretty open. But there are some jurisdictions that obviously will stand out more than others. And so the first jurisdiction I wanted to touch upon today is the island of Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is, I will admit, a bit of a middle ground between the US and Latin America. Obviously, it is a Spanish-speaking island, formerly part of the Spanish Empire. It is considered an Ibero-American territory, but at the same time, it is an unincorporated territory of the United States. Now, this comes with a series of advantages. So number one is that through Puerto Rico, you can access U.S. payment processing very easily. But at the same time, Puerto Rico is more open to opening that account for your offshore company than a mainland U.S. bank. So let's say you're a global entrepreneur, you're running your business through a Hong Kong, a BVI, a Nevis, or a Cayman Islands entity, you might more easily, or not might, you actually much more likely to gain access to banking in Puerto Rico than you are in the mainland U.S. Keep in mind that with a Puerto Rico business account, for example, and with a personal account as well, you'll have access to the ACH payment system. Your wires will go to and from the US very easily. And the reason why I mention this is because many global entrepreneurs want to sell into the US market, and that's very understandable. The US, as of now, is still the world's first economy. It is still by far the world's largest consumer market, and having access to that market and being able to have your customers easily pay you is fundamental, essentially, if you want to keep that business going in the United States. So again, general bottom line for Puerto Rico, great place to go if you have an offshore company, if you need access to US payment processing. Usually you can get customer service in both English and Spanish. And another big thing that I would like to mention for those of you seeking privacy is that Puerto Rico is not a signatory of the CRS. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, the CRS is the Common Reporting Standard. So basically, all of the top economies in the world, with the sole exception of the United States, which as usual does its own thing, they have signed this agreement called the Common Reporting Standard, whereby they mutually share information on citizens opening accounts in other member states and other countries that have signed this agreement. Now, Puerto Rico, being an unincorporated territory of the US, does not fall under this category. Therefore, you can gain an additional layer of privacy. However, I do want to stress out something very important, which is here at Nomad Capitalist, as our founder says, we're the goody two-shoes of the offshore industry, and we do obviously tell our clients that it is fully required for them to disclose any accounts to their home tax authorities and to comply with all laws and regulations. However, this additional layer of privacy could come in handy for, basically personal or corporate confidentiality reasons. The next on the list is basically one you may have likely heard of in the past, which is Panama. It's a very interesting country. You have multi-currency banking, which is also, by the way, a big advantage in Puerto Rico, meaning that in both of these jurisdictions, you can get accounts in US dollars, euros, potentially British pounds. Swiss francs are in there, a bit harder to get, but you could make it work. Panama is, I would say, very friendly towards non-residents. Not as friendly as it used to be. Up until 2015, Panama was much more open. Now, you need to have maybe better banking relations. You need to have some stronger ties to Panama, but still very possible to get an account there. I would also like to emphasize that it is also possible to get business accounts for that offshore company. So same as Puerto Rico, if you're running your business internationally through a Hong Kong or through a BVI entity, then Panama might be the right place for you. A bit more expensive to transact through Panama, but still very interesting. Next on the list, not as widely known, beautiful Uruguay, down in the south, deep south of South America, bordering Argentina. Uruguay has a very solid banking system, very good for transactional banking. Not the cheapest when it comes to fees, similar to Panama. You might find slightly lower fees in Puerto Rico, but Uruguay is again very open. If you have an offshore company company with links to Uruguay, so that could be maybe an office, maybe some staff in Uruguay, maybe some Uruguayan customers, it is possible to get a business account there. For natural persons, it is much simpler, and Uruguay is nice, very stable jurisdiction, and it is one of those places that people don't necessarily think of immediately when it comes to offshore banking in Latin America. The last two on the list are less Latin, but still in the Caribbean region, so Bahamas and Cayman Islands. The Bahamas recently has established itself as a very interesting alternative to the Cayman Islands, offering similar benefits at considerably lower cost depending on the financial institution. They're also very welcoming for your offshore company. As a natural person, you can also open accounts there. Lately, the Bahamas have tried to establish themselves as more like a wealth management hub. So if you're looking for an alternative to maybe Switzerland or Singapore, potentially even the US, and you want to park some cash, you want to have it work for you, earn some interest, invest in a portfolio, then Bahamas might be an interesting place to look at. And last but not least, obviously, like Panama, historically present in all of these discussions, the Cayman Islands. Obviously, multi-currency banking is pretty big in the Cayman Islands. They are not as open as they used to be to that offshore company that you may run your business through. But if you have some links to the Cayman Islands, which can come in the form of a residence permit, maybe some property there, maybe your business has some staff there, then you'll most likely be able to get an account there. Some of the banks there have been in business for a while, so you got good solid banking. British overseas territory, similar to Bahamas, you have the common law is applied, so that can provide greater security, greater peace of mind if you're moving your money offshore. And I would say the main downside to the Cayman Islands would definitely be its cost. Compared to all other jurisdictions listed, Cayman Islands usually comes in at a very high cost when it comes to transactions. So both for incoming, outgoing wires, wealth management fees, those may be some of the challenges you could face in the Cayman Islands. So bottom line, if you're doing business internationally, you might want to look at banking in Latin America and the Caribbean. It could be your main banking hub, or it could also be part of an international banking structure, which would be more the holistic approach that Nomad Capitalists can definitely help you create, both for you personally as a natural individual and for your business or even your multiple businesses. With that being said, if you want to know more about banking, if you want to stay up to date with the latest news when it comes to the financial industry, then subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, nomadcapitalist.com.